This is your crew chief. You're on roll to start. Good luck.
And we're underway here at Daytona.
Daytona, let's go away. Daytona, Daytona, let's go away. Daytona, let's go away. Daytona, let's go away.
Hello! So, 11.1's finally hit the PTR, and with it comes a feature that I've been very eager to try out ever since we got a first glimpse of it at the Warcraft Direct. Yup, it's D.R.I.V.E. WoW's first attempt at a dynamic ground mount in the form of your very own personal customizable car to cruise around the new metropolitan zone of Undermine in. But now we can give it a go for ourselves. How does it actually feel? Does it play well? Do the streets of Undermine allow us to fully unlock this car's true potential? Intro might have been a hint there. Does it have a future, and will it share a similar fate to dragon riding, becoming the standard for ground mounts as we go forward into the World Soul Saga? All will be revealed. Except maybe the last one. I mean, how would I know that? But we can talk about it. But first, let's go over how it works. So after going through the first act of 11.1's new campaign, drilling your way into Undermine, you're soon introduced to Nanny Tallulah, who hands you a set of keys to the G99 Breakneck. And trust me, Breakneck is no exaggeration. This car is fast. I mean, real fast. With the right customization, this thing can go faster than skywriting mounts. It's certainly light years ahead of any sort of ground transportation that we've seen in the game thus far, purely because it has momentum-based movement, in the sense that as soon as you take your finger off your run keybind, you don't immediately stop, which is something we've never had from a WoW vehicle. And it's inertia physics that's only ever really been implemented from running on icy surfaces. So it's a big step for the game. Wow, basic physics in 2025. To drift, hold down the spacebar or whatever button you've got mapped to jump, and either use your strafe keys or your mouse movement to control the direction of the drift. And when you've got a big open stretch of road in front of you, hit the action button and literally break the fucking sound barrier. The amount of boost you have left is indicated by this meter here. To fill it up, simply drift or drive through these lines of fuel canisters which are littered around the map. You can tune how your ride feels with customizable options with a very similar kiss-curse system to something like Mario Kart, where you can adjust top speed, acceleration or grip and increase one of these at the expense of another through the engine and various parts. You can also change the colour, and if you want to, add in a passenger of your choice to ride along too, although this option doesn't actually seem to be functioning or showing up in the PTR just yet. Once you've pimped out your ride just as you'd like, you can take part in races similar to dragon riding races and take on side missions via the car radio. A little bit like the police scanner in GTA, but instead of the police, you're talking to Nanny Tallulah. Bless her little heart. You then speed off towards the destination, guided by the arrow above your car, which feels very much like Crazy Taxi. There are also time trial ones you can do as well, which either aren't available in the PTR or I'm just not far ahead enough in the game to have unlocked it. But either way, this one sounds like it's going to be a 1-to-1-2 Crazy Taxi or Simpsons Road Rage, something of that ilk, which will be a nice throwback for me and everyone else over the age of 30. So, how does it actually feel? Well, personally, I do like it. It feels exactly how I expected it to. It doesn't offer top-tier physics, but to be honest, considering the age of WoW's engine, it does the job as well as you could hope. For drift, it feels great, especially when you go for less grip on the customization for those really wide ones. Wide ones. However, much to my dismay, you can't drift in reverse. I've tried it, it just doesn't work. So, no 007 reverse 180J turns, I'm afraid, which, yeah, is a bummer. However, the drift in general is extremely forgiving. Unlike a real car or the next closest thing, Mario Kart, where understeering in a drift would send you flying off the track in Rainbow Road with no way of pulling out of it in time, even with the boost Nintendo kindly grants you in those situations, because the momentum from the drift and Newton's first law has already made the decision that you are in fact cooked. This isn't the case with Drive, where if you mess up a drift and you realize it, you can immediately correct it by accelerating out of it, even in an opposite direction, completely negating any existing momentum. Yeah, get wrecked, Isaac. I've been testing out drifting both by controlling the direction of the drift with Q and E, my strafe buttons, and also moving the mouse left and right. When you use the strafe buttons to drift, which will, as you'd expect, immediately input the maximum amount of steering possible, allowing you to immediately drift at the tightest angle for really sharp corners, it comes in much more clutch compared to using your mouse, where the steer input is gradual on a gradient based on how far you move your wrist. Of course, in most situations, it'd actually be preferable to have this gradient for more control, but in this case, involves either using a lot of real estate on your mousepad or repetitive cumbersome mouse movements just to stay locked into the drift. I feel like it's just an inevitable side effect of playing a racer on a mouse and keyboard, which you wouldn't usually do unless you're an absolute psychopath. Although there might be a solution to it. This is my good mate Dan, and he plays WoW on a Steam Deck. I know, what an absolute nutcase. I got him into WoW about a year ago, and yeah, much of my initial discuss, this is how he plays it. I did tell him that I wouldn't ever do a key with him if he didn't switch to mouse and keyboard, so he has now. But you know what? Maybe you should go back, because this seems like the perfect opportunity to use a controller. I mean, controller support is now getting better and better and becoming more normalized in the WoW community. I mean, you've got Annie Fuchsia right this minute doing a 1-60 vanilla run on controller. You wouldn't play Forza with a mouse and keyboard, would you? So why would you play Drive with one? So something to consider while you do your world quests. Although just for that, please don't join Mythic Plus dungeons on a controller. And like I said earlier, the speed itself of the car is crazy and way faster than I even thought it would be. It really is satisfying when you find an open stretch of road and just floor it. But that brings me on to one of my main qualms with Drive, and it's not even a qualm with the car itself, it's to do with Undermine. Being that these open stretches of straight road are just too few and far between. A sprawling metropolis is exactly what we needed for a feature like this, and that is technically what we did get somewhat, but not to the extent that really lets us get the most out of our new ride, and pretty much feels like driving a Lambo through central London. You know, like 3 seconds of burst, and then you got to stop at some zebra crossing for someone's nam. Don't get me wrong, Undermine is one of the coolest looking zones we've had in a long time, but it's relatively small and feels less of a city and more of a town. Yes, despite its size, it's very densely packed, but the roads are just so windy and narrow, and in some areas, unless you're literally Dale Earnhardt Jr., it makes it impossible to navigate through at high speeds. So be prepared to crash. You're gonna crash a lot, if the intro didn't already make that clear. And as fine as that is, it does, however, raise a concern that players who are there just to get some world quests done may not even bother engaging with Drive. Because as much as Drive is great for going long distances and going from one side of a map to the other, if there's a cluster of world quests in one portion of the map, using Drive to traverse to each one will probably just end up with you just shooting past it and then having to 3-point turn back into it and then just... or crashing, getting stuck on something. That happens a lot, by the way. Trying to maneuver out of it. Like in these instances, you'd just be so much better off just getting there on your slow, steady, controllable ground mount. Of course, over time, we'll gain familiarity with the map and hopefully crashes should be fewer as we slowly learn where not to boost. But it's just a fact that the lack of open roads and the roads being so windy and narrow just don't feel great. I personally was hoping for a somewhat gridded street structure akin to an American city, which would not only give us that metropolitan Manhattan-esque vibe, but also make it really easy to just floor it whenever we want from one side of a map to the other. Or even if a gridded street system was never on the cars, I feel like an M25 style motorway or freeway that encircles the entire zone, allowing players to just endlessly loop round as fast as they want, with exits leading off at various points allowing you to come back into the city when you've blown off some steam, would have been a pretty cool addition. Now, if you're as old as I am and you were fortunate enough to have played a phenomenal street racer in the late 90s on PC called Midtown Madness, you'll remember the map being a condensed version of the Chicago Loop, with a freeway that encircled the edge of the map, which allowed you to drive round and round, pushing your car's top speed to the absolute limit, and then when you're done, take an exit back into the city. I feel like something as simple as that would have been such a neat addition, and would have made such a huge difference to not just player engagement, but player interactions too. I mean, think of the type of illicit street racing meetups that could have happened, like the PvP scenarios. You've got like Horde and Alliance chasing each other down the freeway, and then they demount and then charge into a skirmish, and then you've got like other players just racing by. I mean, hey, maybe it's just me, but I feel like that would have been sick. So that is kind of my main complaint of Drive, and To their credit, it's not even to do with the car itself. The car's fine, I like the car. It's just the environment which Blizzard has chosen to give us for this new dynamic ground mount's first outing. And I think it's just hindering the car. The zone needed to be bigger and the road just needed to be wider and longer. And considering that Zaralek Cavern, WoW's first additional zone made with the speed of skyriding in mind, being considerably bigger than Undermine, despite the fact that we now know these cars actually go faster than skyriding. So, I don't know, opportunity slightly squandered there, I think. But as much as I've praised the car itself, there are a few bugs with it right now, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be ironed out by the time it goes live, but as they stand, they are pretty game-breaking. There's currently a weird bug that will completely wreck your camera angle at any given point, placing your POV pretty much underneath it. And I also occasionally found that the action bar for the car itself will sometimes not pop up when you mount on it. But to be expected from the PTR, so. There are also some weird physics bugs as well, but I feel like this might just be simply the limitation of WoW's old engine, so, you know, I think these are just to be expected. So, does D.R.I.V.E have a future post 11.1? Obviously, this isn't a question I can definitively answer, but there's definitely a natural expectation for it to go evergreen the same way dragon riding did. Like I discussed in my previous video, reacting to the Warcraft Direct, I touched upon the fact that the two dynamic mount systems aren't equal at all in weight, with dragon riding being one of the main key selling points of the expansion itself, being completely integral throughout, whereas D.R.I.V.E is much smaller in scope, being localized to Undermine and one patch only and not to the war within itself. So the main reason why I think we would get it as evergreen is purely from the standpoint that players don't like to be given things just to have them taken away again. Something Blizzard clearly knew with dragon riding. And despite how much smaller the scope with D.R.I.V.E is, it would still sting to be stuck with our old ground mounts for Midnight and the Last Titan, all the while knowing that the physics for dynamic ground mounts are there in the game lying dormant. But then there are certain factors and implications getting permanent dynamic ground mounts of that speed would have that I think would put Blizzard off from doing it. I mean, one of the things that comes to mind is PvP situations, which is a key frequent location where max level characters are flightless and stuck with ground mounts. And imagine the fuckery that could ensue. Picture an arena match. An opponent is one shot, manages a line of sight behind a pillar, and just before you can land the kill, the prick drops combat, mounts up and just starts kiting you, doing fucking donuts around the edge of the arena. It sounds funny when you say it, but it obviously wouldn't fly. I mean, there would just be the simple option of just disabling it for PvP, but then there are other factors too, such as the fact that this system is clearly built with mounts with wheels in mind, so it will work great on your hate cycle, which may be in your collection if you successfully managed to neck enough mountain dew over the holidays. But your Palomino that you've had since 2004, how's this little prick gonna drift? But I tell you what evergreen dynamic ground mounts will do, if they still go as fast as skyriding and the rest of the world. Player interaction will go through the roof as you'll actually encounter players for a change on the ground while on your adventures, rather than just phasing in with them now and again 15,000 feet in the air. Really reminding you that WoW is actually, in fact, an MMO, which is something retail hasn't quite fully felt like as of late, but that's a can of worms for another day. I guess player reception when 11.1 finally drops will play a role in Blizzard's decision on whether we get it or not, so let's just wait and see. But that pretty much wraps up my little preview for you on D.R.I.V.E. It's available right now on the PTR if you want to go try it out for yourself. Just bear in mind you will need to do a bit of the campaign first if you want to do so if you don't want any spoilers, you might just have to wait till it goes live. But yeah, if not, get stuck in. If you liked what you saw, like, sub, come join the squad. Or catch me on Twitch playing live. Thunderstorm's coming out next week, so I will definitely be streaming that daily. And also, let me just take the opportunity to wish you all a happy new year and hope you all had a lovely holiday period. I didn't actually manage to get any videos out in December, A, because there really wasn't much WoW content to go on, and, you know, seeing friends and family over the holidays, and the free time I did have being monopolised by a certain other game. But 2025 is going to be full steam ahead, so come along for the ride. It's going to be a good one. But thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, as always, take care.